So Nicholas, tell me, how did you get drawn into becoming a family prosperity advisor yourself?
Well, there's two reasons fundamentally why I got involved in family prosperity, why I created this niche phrase, family prosperity advisor. First is business, and secondary for personal purposes. In terms of business, so my background is in accountancy and tax planning and property investing. So I've been an accountant now for well over 15 years, working in a family-run business, my father's practice. I've taken over my father's practice, and the practice has been around for about well over 40 years now. And during that period of time, we've helped our clients save millions of pounds of tax. Clients tend to be entrepreneurs, property investors, and most of them high net worths. Making money, saving money, and that's been our purpose and our main driver as accountants. Now, the problem that we were facing is, whilst we were helping them save lots of money through effective tax planning, financial planning, we were realizing that they were still losing loads of money within the family through either divorce, litigation, and generally family breakdown. And I took a step back and thought to myself, well, what's the point of us working so hard to save our clients all this money when they end up going to spend it in a horrendous litigation battle? Surely there's something that we can do. Surely there's something that we should be doing. But what was it? How was it? How could we help our clients? What was the service that they actually required? And that's where the whole family prosperity came about, because I then ended up researching the reasons why families failed, read whatever books there were out there in this particular area, and effectively created this service that we now have called Family Prosperity Advisory Services. On a personal level, Alistair, we mentioned, and I've mentioned, that I'm what can be deemed as second generation, but the term shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves within 3 generations actually occurred within my own family. So my great-grandfather was a financially wealthy individual, multi-millionaire in his time, controlled the land back in Cyprus, where he was from. And at those days, similar to today, if you controlled the land, you controlled the wealth. And so he created his own wealth, self-made millionaire in his own right. But unfortunately, by the time my father was 8 years old, the money had gone. Shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve. My father should have been 3rd generation and ended up coming to England with absolutely nothing to his name and restarting the process from scratch. He created his own accountancy practice, built a family property portfolio, and created wealth in his own right. Now I've come around and I'm 2nd generation, listening to my family's heritage, my family's story, thinking to myself, I'm destined to lose it all, just like my grandfather did. Do I really want to be in a position? Do I really want my legacy to be, I'm the one who lost his father's money? Clearly not. And it was something that kept me awake for many, many nights, I have to admit. And I wanted to do something about it. I didn't know what I had to do about it, but I wanted to do something. So, I got down to the root of, learning finance, qualifying as an accountant, understanding property investing, and effectively generating an interest in wealth and finance, and more importantly, making sure that my family, so my siblings, work together so we don't break apart. And one of the things that we did, we like to say we walk our talk. It's all good me explaining to you and explaining to the viewers of this particular video that family prosperity is great and these are the services we provide. But let me tell you something, the first client that we took on was my family. Because when I expressed this to my father, are we doing, and on our website, familyprosperity.co.uk, and even on my book, I have a very generic 8 questions about the risks of family prosperity, multi-generational wealth. And when I ran through those questions, unfortunately, we answered no to all of those questions. We should be answering yes. I won't give it away. Your viewers can see it on the video on our website, and of course in my book. But it was an eye-opener for my father. He was going down the route of everything's okay, we all get on, everything's going to be wonderful. Normality bias. But when I highlighted it to him that we weren't doing what we should be doing, and it was highlighted to him through a book and through my website, it then dawned on him that we should be doing something. that we should be sitting down as a family and having what we call a family day. We've had multiple now within my family. It's now regular, efficient, effective communication amongst the family members to make sure that what I classify as the white elephant in the room is discussed. The estate, the will, what assets the family has, who's responsible for what. Because having those open, transparent discussions, Alistair, is huge. It's absolutely huge. I mean, it helps relax the family members. I mean, I've seen a massive shift in my siblings. We've never had a problem in the past, don't get me wrong, but there's something that always lingers in the background. There's these false assumptions that because, I'm the qualified person and I look after the wealth, then maybe I have, something's going to go wrong. And these, even if it's complete garbage, you'd be amazed how many people, even my own siblings were creating these false stories. And why? Because we weren't communicating what's going on. We weren't talking about what's the vision of the family, what's the purpose of the wealth of the family. And once we sat down and had these open conversations, everyone relaxed. It just brought a huge amount of ease to everyone. And we discussed the values of my parents and the values of each member to ensure that we can have that effective communication amongst ourselves. We discussed the fears that my father had, and the fears that my mother had, and that they want for us to get on as a family. Again, not unusual, but never spoken about until we had those open conversations. So we like to walk our talk here at the Charles Group. And like I said, first client, my family. And my goodness, probably the hardest client I'll ever have, because it's a lot harder to talk about this when you're within the equation, and so much easier when you have someone neutral come in and sit and facilitate these conversations, which is again one of the things that we offer and one of the main reasons why we offer it, because it's difficult to speak about wealth and have formal conversations with your family. That's why 90% fell within 3 generations. That's why 70% fell within 2 generations. It's not unusual. These things are not spoken about often enough. And that's what we try and facilitate, to make sure they are communicated and they're done formally. And more importantly, we then establish core advisory roles within the family. So everyone's accountable, everyone understands their role within the family. And following from that, family governance if the family's big enough and if they want it. But again, bespoke, tailor-made services designed for the family.
Great. And I imagine a lot of the services you provide, in fact, virtually all of them, can't be found in traditional professional advisors.
No, I mean, if they were doing this, clearly there wouldn't be a need, and clearly there wouldn't be the current issue that we have today. I mean, statistically, what I've been telling you has been going for about 100 years. And whilst financial advice has got better, through legislation, banking rules have obviously improved. So you don't see as many banks collapsing with everyone's money nowadays. It's very rare to hear a story about a qualified financial advisor, for example, running off with the millions. Was happening a lot more often 50, 100 years ago, but not so often now. So yes, that aspect has improved, but that isn't the fundamental reasons why families lose their wealth. So you're right, Alistair, it's not happening often enough. It's not being dealt with by your traditional professional advisors. Not to say they're doing a bad job, because I'm sure they're wonderful at what they do. They don't do family prosperity advice.
Yeah.
In all respect to traditional professional advice, by the way, I am a qualified accountant, still am. As accountants, I can say we do not do family prosperity advice. It is a separate, unique, niche aspect which all families need.
Yeah, okay, great. And so things like an IFA, I've dealt with many, I thought IFAs wouldn't be giving you advice or helping you to help your children appreciate wealth more, for example. They wouldn't be helping you with an inspirational family vision.
Well, what do financial advisors look after essentially? They look after the wealth. That's their key role.
Yeah.
Whereas we like to look after the family.
Yeah.
We are not qualified financial advisors. We have no interest whatsoever in looking after the wealth of the family. In fact, we'd like to work with financial advisors to ensure that whilst they're looking after the wealth, we're looking after the family. It's about the business of being a family. When we walk into families, you're talking about families worth 25, 50, 100, 200 plus million pounds. that wealth is a business, and it's understanding how to look after that wealth is in itself a business, and we call it the business of being a family. So whilst we facilitate and help the family to understand and put in what we call the 4 fundamentals of family prosperity, one of those arms is working with other professional advisors.
Yes. Yeah, so I guess, I mean, from what you've said, my understanding is that whilst people like financial advisors, traditional financial advisors help with managing the financial capital, you're helping with the human capital of the business, of the family.
Yes, I mean, one of the aspects we do is, we look after not just look after, we ensure the human intellectual capital is passed down to the next generation.
But not just the intellectual capital, you're talking about all the human capital, the emotional, intellectual,
of course,
the relationships. That's the bit that you're
starting with effective communication. That's just the foundation of long-term family prosperity is effective communication. If you don't have effective communication, it's like trying to build a house by starting with the roof. It's a complete waste of time. You've got to have effective communication with the family members. You've got to make sure that the trust element, that keyword trust element, is within the family. If you don't have trust within the family members, you're going to have fallout, and it's inevitable. And we've seen it time and time again, not just with our clients, but just go on media. Just look at the media. How many wealthy families have you seen currently in court having all sorts of arguments among themselves, which leads to huge breakups, emotional breakups, which leads to financial catastrophe.
And some very wealthy lawyers usually.
Yeah, which is great for the family lawyers, should we say, the ones that deal with the divorce and the litigation, but not great for the family themselves.
Yeah. Okay, great. That was really enlightening. Thanks very much for that.
Pleasure.
The final thing to ask you is, what are families to do now if they're interested in what you're doing?
Brilliant. Well, 2 things. Visit our website, familyprosperity.co.uk. There's all sorts of wonderful information for them to look up. You can also buy our book from the website, or you can go directly on Amazon, the book, The 4 Fundamentals of Family Prosperity. We managed to get that to #1 on Amazon, beat Robert Kiyosaki, believe it or not, so which I was quite impressed with. Have a read of the book. The 8 questions are both in the book, and they can be answered on our website. That's the starting point. And once you go onto our website, click on that if you want to know more information. If you want to have a initial conversation, no charge at all, by all means click on, put your details in, and we'll love to have a conversation with you. Keep it nice and simple.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Alistair.